Govinda. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhaktavinda. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna. So today is the most auspicious appearance of Gadadhar Pandit. And I was asked to speak on the glories of Gadadhar Pandit. So the next 30 minutes or so, I'll do my best to speak something on Gadadhar Pandit from Chaitanya Charitamrita and from Chaitanya Bhagavat. I thought maybe we could first read couple of verses from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. This is Adi Lila, chapter 7, and I'll read text 5 and 6. So text 5, Panchatattva eka vastu nahi kichu bheda rasa asvadite tabu vivida vibheda. Panchatattva eka vastu nahi kichu bheda rasa asvadite tabu vividha vibheda. Once again, this is Adilila chapter 7, text 5. I'll read once again. Panchatattva eka vastu nahi kichu bheda rasa asvadite tabu vivida vibheda. Does anybody want to chant the verse? If you're able to find it. Adi 7.5.
I'm going to defer to Tarka Prabhu.
I've got it, Prabhu. Panchatattva eka vastu nahi kichu bhedam rasa asvadite tavu vividha vibheda.
Panchatattva ekavastu nahi kichu bheda rasa aswadite tabu vivida vibheda.
Panchatattva ekavastu nahi kichu bheda rasa asvadite tabu vivida vibheda.
Thank you, Mother Jambuti. I'll read the translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Spiritually, there are no differences between these five tattvas. The five tattvas that have been described are, tattva means truth. The five tattvas are Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivas, so the five tattvas. So spiritually, there are no differences between these five tattvas. For on the transcendental platform, everything is absolute. Yet, there are also varieties in the spiritual world, and in order to taste these spiritual varieties, one should distinguish between them. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. In his Anubhashya commentary, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur describes the Panchatattva as follows. The Supreme Energetic, the personality of Godhead, manifesting in order to enjoy five kinds of pastimes, appears as the members of the Panchatattva. Actually, there is no difference between them because they are situated on the absolute platform, but they manifest different spiritual varieties as a challenge to the impersonalists to taste different kinds of spiritual humors, rasas. In the Vedas, it is said, Parasya Shakti Vividhaya Shruyate. The varieties of energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are differently known. From the statement of the Vedas, one can understand that there are eternal varieties of humors or tastes in the spiritual world. Sri Gauranga, Sri Nityananda, Sri Advaita, Sri Gadadhara, and Srivas Thakur are all on the same platform, but in spiritually distinguishing between them, one should understand that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the form of a devotee. Nityananda Prabhu appears in the form of a devotee spiritual master. Advaita Prabhu is in the form of a bhakta devotee, incarnation. Gadadhar Prabhu is the energy of a bhakta, and Srivas Thakur is a pure devotee. Thus, there are spiritual distinctions between them. The Bhakta Rupa, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and the Bhakta Swarupa, Sri Nityananda Prabhu, and the Bhakta Avatara, Sri Advaita Prabhu, are described as the Supreme Personality of Godhead Himself, His immediate manifestation, and His plenary expansion. And they all belong to the Vishnu category. Although the spiritual and marginal energies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are non-different from the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu, they are predominated subjects, whereas Lord Vishnu is the predominator. As such, although they are on the same platform, they've appeared differently in order to facilitate tasting of transcendental mellows. Actually, however, there is no possibility of one being different from the other, for the worshipper and the worshipable cannot be separated at any stage. On the absolute platform, one cannot be understood without the other. And I'll also read text 6, which is a very famous verse. All of us chanted, we know it. So this is a verse that we can chant. Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakhyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam. Devotees can chant this verse.
Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhaktarupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam.
Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhaktarupa-swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam.
Anyone else?
Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhaktarupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam.
I'll read the translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Let me offer my obeisances unto Lord Sri Krishna, who has manifested himself in 5 as a devotee, expansion of a devotee, incarnation of a devotee, pure devotee, and devotional energy. And the short purport, I'll quickly read it. Sri Nityananda Prabhu is the immediate expansion of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as his brother. He is the personified spiritual bliss of Satchidananda Vigraha. His body is transcendental and full of ecstasy in devotional service. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is therefore called Bhakta Rupa, the form of a devotee. And Sri Nityananda Prabhu is called Bhakta Swarupa, the expansion of a devotee. Sri Advaita Prabhu, the incarnation of a devotee, is Vishnu Tattva and belongs to the same category. There are also different types of bhaktas or devotees on the platform of neutrality, servitude, friendship, parenthood, and conjugal love. Devotees like Sri Damodara, Sri Gadadhara, and Sri Ramananda are different energies. This confirms the Vedic sutra Parasa Shaktir Vivadhaiva Shruyate. All these bhakta subjects taken together constitute Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is Krishna himself. So, if you read the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Chaitanya Bhagavat, there is, of course, a lot of detailed pastimes about Lord Sri Chaitanya, Nityananda Prabhu, and more so in the Chaitanya Bhagavat about Nityananda Prabhu, because Vrindavan Das Thakur was a direct disciple of Nityananda Prabhu. So there's a lot of glorification and description of the activities of Nityananda Prabhu in Chaitanya Bhagavat as well. And a great deal of description about the early pastimes of Lord Chaitanya in the Chaitanya Bhagavat. The Chaitanya Charitamrita summarizes the early pastimes of Lord Chaitanya, but focuses on the later pastimes, the Madhya Leela and the Antya Leela. There's also a description of the pastimes of Advaita Acharya. And interestingly, there's also a lot of description of the pastimes of Srivas Thakur, including in the Chaitanya Bhagavat and Chaitanya Charitamrita. So as Srila Prabhupada explains so clearly in the purport, Lord Chaitanya is the form of a devotee. And I was hearing a lecture yesterday where the description of this was provided, where Srila Prabhupada speaks about this, that Lord Chaitanya did not become a form of a devotee. Lord Chaitanya did not take a form of a devotee at some point. Lord Chaitanya is eternally Lord Krishna. So it's not like Lord Krishna became Lord Chaitanya 500 years ago. So Lord Chaitanya eternally exists as the form of a devotee. So it's an eternal existence. It's not something that happened 500 years ago. He manifested on this planet in Navadvip as part of the Leela that we describe as Gaur Leela, and we celebrate Gaur Purnima 550 years ago or so. And that's something that we describe. But from a spiritual perspective, Lord Chaitanya is always Lord Krishna, and Lord Nityananda is always Balaram. These are eternal positions. And similarly, Advaita Acharya is eternally the incarnation of a devotee. And it is interestingly both a form of the Karnadakshay Vishnu and also Sadashiva. So that's all described in Chaitanya Charitamrita. So these are Vishnu Tattva. And then Srivas Thakur is Jiva Tattva. And he's described as Narada Muni and so on in the Leelas. But surprisingly, there is not a huge amount of description of the pastimes of Gadadhar Pandit in Chaitanya Charitamrita and Chaitanya Bhagavat. But when you think about it a little more deeply, you realize that if you look at the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is 12 cantos, roughly 325 or so chapters, something like that, like in the 320 range, 18,000 verses, and out of the 320 or so chapters of the Srimad Bhagavatam, 90 chapters are in the 10th canto alone, which is the largest canto by far. And so approximately 120 or 125 chapters in the Srimad Bhagavatam are directly about Krishna. So you see 90 chapters obviously in the 10th canto are all about Krishna. 11th canto is all about Krishna as well, with Krishna speaking to Uddhava mostly. And of course, Krishna appears in many other cantos as well, especially in the first canto. There's so many chapters relating to Lord Sri Krishna directly, him entering Dwarka and so on. So all these chapters are there. And other cantos as well, you have parts of Krishna's pastimes, like in the third canto and so on. So roughly 120 or so chapters speak about pastimes of Krishna directly. But there's actually no description of the pastimes of Srimati Radharani in Srimad Bhagavatam, except the one verse where the devotees know that Sukadeva Goswami just mentions Aradhita, that who is worshipped, and he mentions the word Radha as part of that verse. It doesn't specifically speak about Radharani. So when you think about that, it's not a surprise that the descriptions of the pastimes of Gadadhar Pandit are not so vividly called out even in Chaitanya Charitamrita. So this Gadadhar Pandit is described by Srila Prabhupada in the purports here as the energy of the Lord, Bhakta Shakti, the energy of devotional service, and that is Radharani. So Gadadhar Pandit is an incarnation of Radharani in Gaur Leela. And there is a book called Gaur Ganodesh Deepika, which describes the eternal positions of all these different personalities who appear in Gaur Leela. And that book also speaks about Gadadhar Pandit being a incarnation of Lalita Devi. So this should not bewilder us, because sometimes and many of these personalities are like that in Gaur Leela, that more than one personality comes in the form of a personality in Gaur Leela to experience the rasa, because there's so much rasa that's available that more than one personality wants to enjoy or experience that rasa. So this is mentioned in the Gaur Ganodesh Deepika. And so Gadadhar Pandit was a very, very close associate of Lord Chaitanya and was extremely affectionate. His mood towards Lord Chaitanya was of extreme affection, which is not surprising that Gadadhar Pandit is Radharani. So Gadadhar Pandit's position of extreme affection, the mellow of extreme submission to Lord Chaitanya comes out in every interaction that Gadadhar Pandit had with Lord Chaitanya. And Lord Chaitanya and Gadadhar Pandit were friends since they were children. They went to the same school. And as you as you all know, when Lord Chaitanya was younger, he was Nimai Pandit. He was a great scholar. And he was not certainly exhibiting any devotional ecstasies or moods. In fact, he was more in the mood of scholarship, and he would challenge everybody to various debates. He would state a position and he would ask somebody to refute it, and they would not be able to refute it. And then he would refute it. And then he would refute the refutation and then say, can you establish the truth back? Because my refutation was so strong. And nobody could refute that refutation. And he would refute that refutation again and establish the original point. So Lord Chaitanya was an expert in all sorts of nyaya and all sorts of tarka. Tarka means essentially argumentation with substantiation. So he would substantiate with various points from the Shastra and establish a point. He would reestablish it after essentially countering it. And so this was typically how he spent his time. And he would do that to Gadadhar Pandit as well. And Gadadhar Pandit was so pained by this kind of exhibition by Lord Chaitanya. Like, this is completely useless. It doesn't actually further your devotional service in any way. So he was just pining for the time when Lord Chaitanya started exhibiting his pastimes as a devotee. And there's a couple of pastimes in the Chaitanya Bhagavad where it's explained where when they were together on a boat one time, Lord Chaitanya asked Gadadhar Pandit, what is the definition of liberation? And Gadadhar Pandit would seldom try to get into these arguments because he knew the objective was just to have word jugglery. So he refused to get into that argument. But then finally, when he was pressed by Lord Chaitanya, he mentioned that the purpose of the definition of liberation is to have complete relief from all sorts of miseries. That's explained in the Shastra, that complete sarva dukkha nivaranam, which means that all miseries, whether material or spiritual, everything is kind of relieved and you're completely free from all sorts of miseries. And Lord Chaitanya refuted that and then established it back again. So this went back and forth, and Lord Chaitanya had this mood of interaction with Gadadhar Pandit, which greatly agitated Gadadhar Pandit in the sense that he felt, why is Lord Chaitanya doing this? He is Krishna himself, and why is he not exhibiting his mood as a devotee of the Lord or directly the Lord? And so when Lord Chaitanya came back from Gaya, as you all know, he was initiated by Ishwarapuri, and then he started exhibiting transcendental pastimes of devotional service. And that's when he started doing his all-night kirtans and established the Sankirtan movement and all of that. So when he did that, it gave great joy to all the residents of Navadvip who were waiting for Lord Chaitanya to do this. So headed by Advaita Acharya, Srivas Thakur, and of course Haridas Thakur was not at that time in Navadvip, but all these great devotees of the Lord were waiting for the Lord to exhibit his pastimes, were extremely, extremely delighted. And so was Gadadhar Pandit. And Gadadhar Pandit was a very close associate during that time of Lord Chaitanya. So Lord Chaitanya started exhibiting ecstasies, and he would cry in ecstasy, missing Krishna. Where is my Krishna? Where is my Krishna? And he would go into delirium, and he would fall on the ground, roll on the ground, sometimes hurt himself. And Sachi Mata was in great pain to see her son, sometimes in this mood of ecstasy, falling down, hurting himself. So one of these ecstasies in the house of Shuklambar Brahmachari, one of the associates of Lord Chaitanya, they were singing kirtan. And Lord Chaitanya went to one of these ecstasies where he was in deep ecstasy crying, where is Krishna? Where is Krishna? I cannot find Krishna anymore. I cannot find Krishna. And he was in deep agony. He was not pretending to be in agony. He was not exhibiting a pastime. He was actually in agony. This Vipralamba Bhava. He was in the mood of Srimati Radharani after Krishna left for Mathura. So immediately when Krishna left for Mathura, all the gopis headed by Srimati Radharani were in extreme agony. They could not tolerate separation from Krishna. And this extreme agony that they were feeling, separation from Krishna, was the mood that Lord Chaitanya was in. And it was literally inconsolable. And Gadadhar Pandit came there, and when Gadadhar Pandit heard Lord Sri Chaitanya crying in this way, he couldn't contain himself. He started weeping loudly. And Lord Chaitanya asked, who's weeping here? Who's the person who's weeping? And they all pointed to Gadadhar Pandit. And Gadadhar Pandit came to Lord Chaitanya and said, my dear Lord, why are you looking for Krishna somewhere else? Lord Krishna is in your heart. He's sitting in your heart. He's right there. And when Gadadhar Pandit said that, Lord Chaitanya was somewhat pacified. He started looking for Krishna in his heart. He started scratching his heart, his chest with his nails to see if he could find Krishna. But he was somewhat pacified because he realized Gadadhar Pandit has assured him that Krishna is in his heart. And so Shachi Mata was extremely, extremely grateful to Gadadhar Pandit so that he could pacify Lord Chaitanya. And Gadadhar Pandit would constantly, so one of the pastimes of Gadadhar Pandit was he would reside, so he resided in this temple of Gopinath, which is very close to Jagannath Puri. Those of you who've been to Jagannath Puri may have been to this Gopinath temple. This Gopinath temple is called Tota Gopinath. Now, Tota in the local Oriya language means garden. So, Tota Gopinath, all that means is that the Gopinath who's in the garden. So there's a little temple of Gopinath in the garden, in a little garden, and so it's called Tota Gopinath. And so Gadadhar Pandit was residing in that garden, in that temple, and he would take care of Gopinath. And so he was extremely attached to Gopinath. And he had taken a vow of Kshetra Sannyas. Kshetra Sannyas means a person takes a vow that he will not leave a certain geographical area and just stay there and worship Lord Chaitanya, worship the Lord. So he was in this mood of Kshetra Sannyas. So he had decided he would never leave Jagannath Puri. He would take darshan of Lord Jagannath and serve Gopinath. That was his vow. And every day, Gadadhar Pandit would read Srimad Bhagavatam for the pleasure of Lord Chaitanya. And Gadadhar Pandit would read a pastime. Let's say he would read Dhruva Maharaj's pastime. And he would read it with such ecstasy and such devotion. Can you imagine Radharani herself reading the pastimes of Srimad Bhagavatam? And Krishna himself, in the mood of Radharani, enjoying those pastimes. So the level of ecstasy they were experiencing was just completely transcendental. It was unbelievable. And Lord Chaitanya would hear that pastime with rapt attention. He would laugh when something joyous was described. He would cry when something painful was described. And he was just completely immersed in hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. And as soon as Gadadhar Pandit would finish that section, Lord Chaitanya would say, please read it again. I want to read it again. I want to hear it again. He was never satisfied. And so Gadadhar Pandit would go back and read that section again and again and again until maybe he had read it 40, 50 times. Only then would reluctantly Lord Chaitanya allow him to even go to the next section. There was so much absorption in hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. And Gadadhar Pandit, it is said that had so much ecstasy in reading Bhagavatam that tears would constantly fall from his eyes as he was reading Srimad Bhagavatam. And all the ink on the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam were getting washed away. And literally, there was no Srimad Bhagavatam left because it was just tears and all the patras, which were essentially leaves in which the verses of Srimad Bhagavatam were etched, were completely getting washed away with the ink. The ink was getting washed away. That was the mood of Gadadhar Pandit. Maybe I'll just speak about one other pastime because you can keep speaking about the glories of Gadadhar Pandit for a while, but let's maybe speak one more pastime and we can end. So this is regarding how Gadadhar Pandit got initiated. And this is very beautifully described in Chaitanya Bhagavat as well, where Mukunda Datta, who was a great devotee of Lord Chaitanya, an associate of Lord Chaitanya, he was also a friend of Gadadhar Pandit, because they were from the same area. And So one time Mukundadatta said that, Gadadhar Pandit, I have the great person that I would like you to meet. His name is Pundarik Vidyanidhi, and he's a great devotee, and I would like you to meet him. So he's such a great personality, I would like you to meet him. And he's actually come here. He's come here now, so I would like you to meet him. So Gadadhar Pandit was very, very excited that he was going to meet a great devotee of the Lord. And so, with great anticipation, they both went to see this great personality, Pundarik Vidyanidhi. And when they approached him, Gadadhar Pandit was a little taken aback because he expected to see somebody. So devotees generally are very simple and dressed very simply and is absorbed in Krishna consciousness. They're either reading or chanting or engaging in some devotional activity. But here he saw this personality who appeared to be very opulent. He was seated in a very comfortable bedstead. There were many servants around him who were fanning him. He was dressed in silk robes and very opulently dressed in silk robes. And his hair was oiled with scented oils. He was wearing perfume. And he seemed like he was regally seated and he was just he didn't seem like he was doing anything spiritual. He was just sitting and enjoying apparent material comforts. Right? So it's bewildering when someone sees, you expect to see a great renowned sadhu, and then you see this person sitting in a very comfortable situation and being fanned by other servants and so on, and you feel, is this a renounced person? I remember this watching this video clip of an interview of Srila Prabhupada, where Srila Prabhupada was asked in a challenging mood by some reporters that we heard that when you landed here, you were received in a Rolls Royce. I forget which city he was in, somewhere in the United States, but he said you were received in a Rolls Royce and you were taken to your temple in a Rolls Royce. So do you have a Rolls Royce? And Srila Prabhupada said, I have many. I have many cars. And he went on to describe how in Europe they had purchased many Volkswagen buses, and they had these buses where devotees would gather and go and spread the Sankirtan movement and distribute books and so on. And he said, I have so many cars, right? And he says, I'm the spiritual master of the richest country in the world, the United States. So why shall I not have cars? So he was just very matter of fact saying that. So very beautifully and very directly, Srila Prabhupada is saying that this is Yukta Vairagya. I'm not going to falsely claim not to have any possession. Another pastime which I remember I heard from another devotee, Srila Prabhupada disciple, was that when Srila Prabhupada was speaking to some guests, just then there was some money that was given to him from the book distribution fund. And so he kept talking to this guest for almost half an hour. And throughout that duration of half an hour, he was counting money. Srila Prabhupada was counting the money and setting it aside in various bundles of, like, say, 10s and 20s or whatever. He was personally doing that. And he was speaking Krishna Katha to this guest. So sweetly, Srila Prabhupada exhibited the same mood of Pundarik Vidyanidhi, where he was completely ready to accept whatever was given to him by disciples in the service of Krishna. But that didn't change his mood of being 100% Krishna conscious. In fact, Shrutakirti Prabhu, I heard a lecture one time, he was saying that Srila Prabhupada innocently told him one time that there was never a time when I was not Krishna conscious. There was never a time when I was not Krishna conscious. And this was not Srila Prabhupada boasting about himself. He was just very innocently just saying. It's like Krishna says, Aham sarvasya prabhavo matta sarvam pravartate. When Krishna says, I am the supreme lord of all beings, it's not a boast, it's just a fact. Similarly, when Srila Prabhupada says, there was never a time when I was not Krishna conscious, it's just a fact. And we're so fortunate to have the association of the books of Srila Prabhupada, the movement of Srila Prabhupada, that we can then immerse ourselves in Krishna consciousness in the mood of Srila Prabhupada, following in his footsteps. So anyway, so this Pundarik Vidyanidhi was dressed so opulently, and he was seated on this bedstead, and he was being fanned, and he was just apparently enjoying extreme material comfort, whatever could be imagined at that time. And Gadadhar Pandit thought, there's something wrong here. This person doesn't look like a devotee, doesn't behave like a devotee. He seems fairly opulent, and he's enjoying opulence. So I just came and met some extremely wealthy person who's immersed in sense gratification. And Mukunda Datta could sense that Gadadhar Pandit is not impressed or thrilled by meeting Pundarik Vidyanidhi. And of course, devotees know that Mukunda Datta was known for singing very sweetly. And of course, his main pastime was to sing sweetly for the pleasure of Lord Chaitanya. So Mukunda Datta picked one verse from Srimad Bhagavatam. This comes in the third canto, the second chapter, which is the discussion between Uddhava and Vidura. But Uddhava is remembering Krishna. And this is a very famous verse, the text 23 that Mukunda Datta very sweetly chanted. And so this verse is, Aho bakiyam stanakala kutam jigham sayatya papaya pesadvi leve gatim dhatru chitam tatonyam kim vadayalum sharanam vrajema. Very beautiful verse. And he sang it very beautifully. He didn't just chant it, he sang it very beautifully. And as soon as Pundarik Vidyanidhi, and I'll recite the translation of this verse from Srila Prabhupada. This translation is, alas, how shall I take shelter of one more merciful than he who granted the position of mother to the she-demon Putana, although she was unfaithful and she prepared deadly poison to be sucked from her breast. So this shows the merciful nature of Lord Shri Krishna. That Krishna gave the position of mother even to Putana. So who can be more merciful than that? And how can I find somebody more merciful than that to take shelter of? So when Pundarik Vidyanidhi heard this verse, he completely lost himself. He completely went to the mood of Vrindavan. Just like, when materially minded individuals, I can speak about myself, when we hear highly materialistic topics, even for a short while, our mind immediately becomes completely materially contaminated. It runs to material things. Even if we hear or see or smell something that reminds us of material topics, immediately our mind runs there. The exact opposite happens to great devotees. Even if they get a sense that they're being pulled towards Krishna, they completely go berserk in the mood of being completely Krishna conscious. So Pundarik Vidyanidhi, the moment he heard this verse, he got completely immersed in the Vrindavan mood. Immediately. Similarly, if you remember in the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, as soon as the smell of the tulsi leaves from the lotus feet of Vishnu entered the nostrils of the four Kumaras, they were completely absorbed in transcendental bliss. They didn't even see the Lord yet. They only smelled the tulsi leaves from the lotus feet of the Lord. And that was sufficient. So it's just like that. When we hear Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, when we just chant and hear, that should transport our hearts to be completely fixed in Krishna consciousness. So when Pundarik Vidyanidhi heard this verse, he was completely transformed and he was moved to the Vrindavan platform. And he actually completely swooned and fell off where he was sitting, and he was rolling on the ground saying, where is my Krishna? Where is my Krishna? And he was completely absorbed in that Vrindavan mood. And Gadadhar Pandit could immediately see that this personality is not an ordinary personality. As soon as he heard a reference to Krishna, he completely lost all external consciousness and was completely absorbed in Krishna. And Gadadhar Pandit was completely taken aback. And he felt greatly ashamed that he even doubted for a second the devotional ecstasy of the great personality Pundarika Dhyanidhi. And he was very, very ashamed, and he went away from that place. He was so ashamed that he didn't even stay there. He just went away from that place. And he kept contemplating, how can I atone for my offense at the lotus feet of Pundarika Dhyanidhi? Now, if you think about from a perspective of what we think about modern day, what an offense is, Gadadhar Pandit didn't actually say anything to Pundarika Dhyanidhi. He didn't say anything about Pundarika Dhyanidhi to anybody else. He didn't gossip about him. He didn't criticize him. He didn't do anything. All he did was start in his mind that, oh, this person doesn't seem like a devotee. That's all he did. But Gadadhar Pandit considered that such a big offense that how can I think that this person is not a devotee? That's such a big offense. That he was in complete remorse. He was completely shattered that how can I even think I made such a great offense to this great personality? And he kept thinking, how can he atone? And then finally he went and told Lord Chaitanya that I think the only thing I can do is to beg Pundarika Dhyanidhi to give me initiation and become a disciple. That's the only way I think I can atone for my great offense at his lotus feet. And when Gadadhar Pandit said this to Lord Chaitanya was extremely pleased. And he said, yes, that is the right thing to do. And that's how Gadadhar Pandit became associated with Pundarika Dhyanidhi and became his disciple. So anyway, I've said a few things. There are also some of the pastimes regarding how Lord Chaitanya, when he left for Vrindavan and so on, but maybe we don't go there today. Today is a very auspicious day. We have an opportunity to meditate on the Bhakta Shakti, the energy of devotional service. And of course, we hear that the Lord has multiple energies, antaranga, bahiranga, tatastha, like internal, external. But the reality is, the Lord, Supreme Personality of Godhead, has only one energy, which is the internal energy. And all other energies are manifestations of the internal energy. So while we speak about it, we say the Lord has many energies. But when you look at the Tattva, Supreme Personality of Godhead has only one energy, internal energy, which manifests as Srimati Radharani. And all other Shaktis of the Lord are manifestations of this one internal energy of the Lord, which is represented by Srimati Radharani. So that's a little bit about what I could glorify Gadadhar Pandit. If anybody has anything to add or any questions or comments, please go ahead. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhu, for a very enlightening class. Friday's class becoming one of my favorite days for tuning into the Bhagavatam class. So my question relates to Lord Chaitanya, actually the identity of the Swayam Rupa. So in teachings of Lord Chaitanya, in the section Sanatana Shiksha, where Lord Chaitanya is teaching Sanatana Goswami about just the whole ontology of the entire existence. So Krishna is the root of all existence, and then you have a Balaram, and then expansion of Srimati Radharani, and basically how all Krishna is actually the source of all incarnations. And then in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishna Das is explaining that actually, yeah, I just forget the reference for this, but basically, I've heard my Guru Maharaj quote, I just forget if it's Kavikarnapur or if he's quoting Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, that the way to understand Lord Chaitanya and Krishna is that when Krishna wants to be separate, when the Supreme Lord wants to be separate, then he's Radha Krishna. And then when he wants to be one, then he's Lord Chaitanya. So my question is, who actually is the Swayam Rupa? Because my mind can only accommodate one Swayam Rupa, like one root form. That is actually the root of all incarnations.
Yeah, thank you for the nice question. Yeah, it's a technical question, and I can give you a technical answer also, but we can discuss separately as well. This is not a uncommon question when people start understanding Chaitanya Tattva, and Kaviraj Goswami speaks about it in the beginning of the Mangalacharan verses also, that how Radha Krishna were eternally one, but they were eternally separated and again become one in the body of Lord Chaitanya. Radha Krishna Pranay Vikriti Raladini Shakti Rasmat. That verse, if you read those two verses, it describes that. The problem is us. We are very binary in our thinking. And although we speak about Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva, we don't quite fully understand it. Because for us, something that's simultaneously one and different is not a concept that we grasp. Because that's not our real world experience. Right? So if something is either a mango or an apple, it's not simultaneously both a mango and an apple. There's no such thing. Right? That's not our physical world experience. And so we try to use that same analogy when we try to understand Lord Chaitanya. And that is basically the problem. Right? Because our physical experience of the world is binary. Yeah. Either it's water or it's tea. But the tea has water in it. So if I give you a cup of brewed tea, there is water in it. There's also tea in it. So it's tea and water. So simultaneously, it's both water and tea. But the converse is not true. If I bring a cup of water to you, it is not tea because there's no tea in it. But in the case of Lord Chaitanya being Radha Krishna simultaneously and differently, that concept works both ways. Converse also is true. So Lord Chaitanya is Radha Krishna together. He's also Krishna directly. He's also in the mood of Radharani. So all these things are simultaneously true. So when we hear Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva, Srila Prabhupada uses the word inconceivable because it is not something we can intellectually understand. So there is no intellectual answer to this question, is my point. So there is no intellectual argument that we can actually understand how this Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva works. We only have to accept. And that's why it's called inconceivable. It's really a non-answer, but the reason there's a non-answer is because it's not a question that can be answered, meaning that we cannot physically or intellectually understand the concept of Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva, because the concept of simultaneous oneness and difference is not something we don't have an analogy of that in the physical world. In the physical world, there is no such thing which is simultaneously one and different from something else. Whereas is Krishna one with the jiva or different from the jiva? Our philosophy is fundamentally Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva. Means that yes, qualitatively one, quantitatively different. Everything comes from the Lord. The Lord is simultaneously everything, but also different from everything, as Krishna speaks about it in the 7th chapter as well in the Gita. So this whole concept of Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva, if you try to intellectually analyze, it just becomes a big circle. And we will never be able to come out of that circle. So the way we rationalize it is that yes, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Radharani is not different from Krishna. They're not different. The energy of Krishna. So it's not like it's a different personality. But for Leela, Radharani is a different personality, but not different from Krishna. And that same Radha Krishna, who were actually one, became two, and again became one. But they're eternally two, but eternally one. I was remembering a lecture from my Guru Maharaj, where he actually went on saying this for like a few minutes and then said, doesn't make sense. Like they're eternally, the Supreme Lord is eternally one, became two, but then also became one, but is actually eternally two. So this is like a riddle that you cannot really solve with your intelligence. It's just sweetness that we appreciate. It's such a sweet pastime that the Lord personally expanded himself as Radharani and then personally combined himself in the form of Lord Chaitanya to experience the rasa, the mood, the sweetness that Radharani feels when she associates with Krishna. So that's the kind of non-answer for this question, Dhruv.
No, it makes sense, because yeah, the answer is also a suitable answer, suitable to the person who's asking it. So as you were speaking, I was thinking, the way Shukadev Goswami, he describes this material world as just a world of names. So one can see that, okay, I'm rationalizing. This question is coming from the basis of my rationale is my senses. So I'm thinking about the Lord Chaitanya and Lord Krishna as being different because we're using different names to refer to the same personality. And also, even in terms of the eyes as well, is that I'm rationalizing it based on what I'm seeing, right? So the Lord's physical characteristics, Lord Chaitanya is golden, Krishna is Asitambuddha, blackish, bluish. Um, and so these are, in one sense, one could say that, okay, these are constructs of my own senses, but they also have factual existence because these are the actual characteristics of the Lord. And the Lord has pastimes, right? So when you talk about the Swayam Rupa, as you were describing it, I could see is that, okay, well, Ramananda Rai, when he was looking at Lord Chaitanya, he was seeing Radha Krishna, right? So his eyes, he was able to actually perceive the simultaneous oneness and difference, right? Other people, when they look at Krishna, like Krishna never steps out of Vrindavan. So they see, when they look at Krishna, they can also see Lord Chaitanya in one sense because they can see Radha as well right there, you know. Um, so yeah, thank you, Prabhu. Your answer basically just helped me see that no, this inability to actually understand the Chinta Beta Beta Tattva is based on the limitations of my senses, which condition my rationalization.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hi, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
If I could add something,
Yeah, please.
Gadai, Radharani's Gadai, and it's been said that that relationship with Lord Chaitanya is so deep that it's bottomless, and when we want to enter into that relationship, it'll be revealed that she's the heart of Lord Chaitanya. Gadadhar, they actually lie together, and they're always holding hands together when they're walking in the streets, and so now Radharani can freely love Krishna as far as in the form of Lord Chaitanya without the social constraints, and the judgments and the implications that come with it. So now that intimacy has gotten so sweet. And someone mentioned about Zadhar that she you don't see in like Gopinath and the different temples. Gadadhar brought the first time Radha on the altar, the deity form of Radharani, to be with Krishna in the altars. She was the first one. I don't know if you've heard that before, but it's it didn't exist before. And so Gadadhar came and installed Radharani on the altar with Krishna side by side in quiet little fact. Thank you for your really nice class and your association.
Thank you. Thank you, Kalidam Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Thank you. पंचतत्व की जय, राधा पंडित की जय. हरे कृष्णा.
Hare Krishna.